Welcome back to my channel, Valuable Rare Coins. If you love discovering hidden treasures in your pocket change, you're in the right place. First, we'll uncover some of the most valuable and rare US coins that could be worth a fortune. Let's dive in. We're going back in time to uncover the fascinating story of a coin that millions of people handled every day, the 1965 Washington quarter. But before you write it off as just another common coin from your grandma's jar, hold on. Because hidden among the ordinary lies a version of this quarter so rare, so mysterious, and so valuable that it once sold for more than most people's annual salary. You'll never look at pocket change the same way again. Now, to appreciate what makes the 1965 Washington quarter so special, we've got to rewind to the early 1960s. Up until 1964, U.S. quarters were made of 90% silver. These weren't just shiny coins, they were real money, with metal value that often exceeded their face value. But rising silver prices in the mid-1960s caused a crisis. People were hoarding silver coins. The mint couldn't keep up with demand. It was a turning point. So in 1965, the U.S. Mint made a huge decision. Quarters would no longer be made of silver. Instead, they'd be struck using a copper-nickel-clad composition, a sandwich of metals designed to look like silver but without the cost. This transition was necessary to save the nation's coin supply, but like every major change, there were growing pains, and it's in those chaotic early days of the transition that our story begins. While the mint officially switched to the new copper-nickel planchets in 1965, it turns out that not every coin struck that year followed the rules. Some leftover silver planchets from 1964 were mistakenly used to strike 1965 dated quarters. These incredibly rare transitional era coins are what collectors dream about. Why? Because they're a clash of two eras, the Silver Age and the Modern Age, and they weren't supposed to exist. Imagine a 1965 quarter that looks just like any other, until you weigh it. Instead of the expected 5.67 grams for a clad coin, this mysterious version tips the scale closer to 6.25 grams, the weight of a silver quarter. The color might be slightly different. The sound it makes when dropped higher-pitched, almost musical. A small detail, but one that transforms it into a six-figure treasure. Now, spotting one of these silver 1965 quarters isn't easy. You can't always tell just by looking. You need a scale, a keen eye, and sometimes even a metallurgical test. But if you do find one, it's like finding a golden ticket in your loose change. But silver isn't the only mystery surrounding the 1965 quarter. There are also known minting errors that have become extremely desirable over the years. Some quarters from that year were struck off-center. Others show double dies, where the image appears slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during production. And a few were struck on the wrong planchets altogether, like pennies or dimes, resulting in undersized or oddly colored coins. Each of these errors tells a story. A tiny moment of imperfection in an otherwise carefully controlled process. And collectors love stories, especially the ones you can hold in your hand. But here's where things get truly jaw-dropping. While millions of 1965 quarters were struck in the new copper-nickel-clad format, only a few silver versions are confirmed to exist. These aren't collector-made. These aren't fakes. These are real coins that accidentally slipped through the cracks of one of the most critical transitions in U.S. coin history. That's what makes them so rare. That's what makes them so valuable, and when one of these silver-struck 1965 quarters appears at auction, especially in uncirculated or mint state condition, collectors go wild. With intense bidding wars, these rare coins can command staggering prices, which brings us to the moment you've been waiting for. One of the finest known examples of a 1965 Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet, authenticated, certified, and graded at an elite level, sold for an astonishing $180,000. Yes, you heard that right. A quarter. 25 cents. Worth more than some luxury cars, home down payments, or college degrees. So, what does this mean for you? It means that in a world of overlooked spare change and forgotten piggy banks, there could still be undiscovered treasures waiting to be found. All it takes is curiosity, attention to detail, and a little bit of luck. Go check your coin jars, your old dresser drawers, your grandparents' collections, and especially any 1965 quarters you might have lying around. Because one of them might just be that elusive silver mistake, the one worth a small fortune. Second rare coin, we're putting the spotlight on a piece of US change you might have in your pocket right now, or buried in a forgotten coin jar, the 1967 Washington quarter. At first glance, it looks like just another quarter. But if you know what to look for, this everyday coin could turn out to be one of the rarest treasures in modern numismatics. And yes, one rare version of this coin has sold for a truly mind-blowing amount. So don't blink, you just might miss your golden opportunity. Let's start with a bit of backstory. The Washington quarter has been around since 1932, originally created to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington. For decades, these quarters were struck in 90% silver, shiny, solid, and valuable even for their metal content. But everything changed in the mid-1960s. Because silver prices began to soar, the U.S. government made a historic decision. They would remove silver from circulating coins. Starting in 1965, quarters were no longer made of silver but were instead struck using a clad composition, a copper core with a nickel outer layer. The 1967 quarter was born during this critical time of transition. Now, here's where it gets interesting. From 1965 to 1967, in order to discourage hoarding and ease the chaos of changing coinage, the U.S. Mint did not put mint marks on quarters. That means all 1967 quarters, whether made in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, look the same at first glance. No little P, D, or S under the date. Just a clean, simple design with George Washington's classic profile on the front and the American eagle on the reverse. But not all 1967 quarters were created equal, while hundreds of millions were produced. A small number stand out due to rare minting errors, unusual planchets, or pristine uncirculated condition. These coins defy expectations, and they're exactly what collectors dream of finding. Let's talk about the kinds of things that make a 1967 quarter go from spare change to collector's gold. Point 1 possibility: striking errors. These are coins that were struck incorrectly during production. Some might be off-center, with part of the design missing. Others might show a double die, where the design was impressed twice and shifted slightly, creating a ghost-like doubling effect that's easy to spot. Some even were struck on the wrong planchet, like a dime planchet, making them smaller and thinner than they should be. Even more fascinating, a tiny number of 1,967 quarters may have been struck on leftover silver planchets from 1964. These would weigh slightly more than a regular clad quarter, and if you dropped them on a hard surface, the sound would be distinct, a high-pitched ring instead of the dull clink of modern clad coins. These silver-struck 1967 quarters are incredibly rare. And if you find one in excellent condition, you're sitting on a major treasure. Now here's the thing. Most of these rare coins don't look dramatically different from regular quarters. That's what makes this such an exciting challenge. The value is hiding in the details, the weight, the strike, the edges, and most importantly, the condition. Coins that are uncirculated and professionally graded at high levels like MS 67, MS 68, or higher are the ones that command serious attention. And serious money. How do you find out if your 1967 quarter is worth more than 25 cents? Start by checking its weight. A regular 1967 quarter should weigh about 5.67 grams. If yours is closer to 6.25 grams, you might be holding a silver error coin. Also, examine it under magnification for signs of doubling or striking anomalies. And finally, if it looks almost flawless, no scratches, full detail, strong luster, it might be worth sending in for professional grading, because here's the payoff. Point 1 rare and perfectly preserved 1967 Washington quarter. Struck in mint condition and featuring a highly sought-after mint error, stunned collectors when it was sold at auction for an unbelievable $170,000. Yes, you heard that right. A 25-cent coin that was likely spent on bubblegum or coffee decades ago turned out to be worth more than a sports car. That's the magic of numismatics, the thrill of discovering history and hidden value in something so simple, so overlooked, and so ordinary. So don't dismiss your old change. Don't ignore the coins sitting in your kitchen drawer or tucked away in that dusty coin jar. The next time you spot a 1967 quarter, take a closer look. You never know, you might just be holding the key to a six-figure payday. Third expensive coin, we're about to dive into one of the most interesting and valuable coins in U.S. history that you might have never given a second thought to, the 1970 D. Washington quarter. Now, you might be thinking, a quarter from 1970? That doesn't sound too exciting. Well, think again. This seemingly ordinary coin has a hidden value that could make it worth far more than you'd expect, and today, we're going to explain exactly why. Let's first take a moment to appreciate the Washington quarter in general. Introduced in 1932 to honor the first president of the United States, George Washington, this coin has become a beloved part of American currency. For decades, it's been in circulation, representing not just the nation's wealth, but also its ideals of freedom and democracy. The 1970 quarter, like most others during that era, is part of the clad coinage series, meaning it was made from a mix of copper and nickel, not the silver content of earlier years. But while it may seem like just another quarter, the 1970 D holds a fascinating secret that could lead you to a valuable find. You see, in 1970, the U.S. Mint in Denver made a major oversight that would set the stage for a very rare error. In that year, the U.S. Mint produced millions of quarters with the D mint mark to indicate they were struck in Denver. But due to a mix-up in the minting process, some quarters from that year were actually struck on the wrong planchets or incorrect metal blanks. This means that a small number of 1970 D quarters were accidentally made using silver planchets that were left over from earlier years when the U.S. Mint used silver in their coins. This is where things get interesting. Because most of the quarters in circulation were made with the typical copper-nickel clad metal, these silver 1970 D quarters stand out. They weigh more, have a different tone when dropped, and can be easily spotted with a quick inspection. The weight difference is noticeable. The regular clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams, but the silver version is about 6.25 grams. It's a small detail, but one that can have a huge impact on a coin's value. And here's the kicker, finding one of these silver 1970 D quarters is extremely rare. So rare, in fact, that collectors are willing to pay top dollar to get their hands on one. A 1970 D. Washington quarter made with this silver planchet is an error coin of remarkable value. Now, you might wonder how to spot these rare silver 1970 D quarters. Well, it's actually pretty simple. You can start by weighing the coin. If it's heavier than a regular quarter, you've got a possible silver coin on your hands. Another way to tell is by the sound it makes when dropped. Silver has a distinctive ringing tone that's different from the dull clink of clad coins. But what makes these error coins even more desirable to collectors is the condition. Just like with any rare coin, the better the condition, the more valuable it becomes. A 1970 D silver quarter in pristine, uncirculated condition can be worth a lot more than one that's worn or damaged. These rare coins are often graded by professional services, with higher grades meaning they can fetch tens of thousands of dollars at auctions. Now, let's talk about how much money these rare finds can actually be worth. Most 1970 D quarters you come across are just regular clad coins worth 25 cents. However, a silver error coin from 1970 D, especially in mint condition, can be worth significantly more, and we're talking big money. A 1970 D. Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet in pristine condition can sell for a whopping $150,000. That's right, a single quarter, worth just a quarter when it was first struck, can now fetch a price that's more than a house down payment or even a brand new car. It's crazy, right? But that's the magic of numismatics. What seems ordinary on the surface can actually be hiding something extraordinary. So, if you have a collection of coins lying around, or if you happen to come across a 1970 D quarter, make sure to take a close look. Weigh it, check for the silver shine, and listen to its sound. You might just have a small treasure on your hands. Especially, we're going to be talking about a coin that you might have come across in your pocket change. Yes, it's the 1981 D Washington quarter. At first glance, this might seem like just another modern coin, but trust me, there's more to this seemingly ordinary quarter than meets the eye. And if you know what to look for, you could be holding a piece worth more than you'd expect. The Washington quarter has been around for a long time, since 1932, in fact. The design, which features George Washington's portrait on the front and an eagle on the back, has become iconic. This coin has gone through several changes over the years, from being made of 90% silver to the copper-nickel-clad quarters we know today. But the 1981 D Washington quarter stands out for a particular reason. There's a rare version of this coin that could make you a significant amount of money. And you might just have one sitting in your collection right now. Understand why the 1981 D Washington quarter could be worth so much. We need to take a look at a few key factors. First off, let's start with the basic history of this particular year and mint. The 1981 D quarter was minted at the Denver Mint, as indicated by the D mint mark. In 1981, the U.S. Mint was still using the copper-nickel-clad composition that was introduced in 1965, meaning the quarters produced during this time were made of a copper core and a nickel outer layer. These quarters were minted in large numbers, and like many coins from this era, they were mass-produced and widely circulated. But here's where things get interesting. Despite the fact that millions of 1981 D quarters were made, there's a very rare error coin that can make this quarter worth a small fortune. The key to this coin's rarity lies in a specific die variety. Over time, dies used in the minting process can become worn out or damaged, and this can cause striking errors. One such error happened in 1981, where a die crack or die deterioration occurred, resulting in coins with distinct flaws in the design. When you look closely at these 1981 D quarters with the die crack, you can see noticeable extra lines or deep cracks that cut through the design. These coins have a character to them that makes them stand out from the rest. The flaw itself, while subtle to the untrained eye, is something that collectors absolutely love. It's the kind of imperfection that adds historical significance to a coin. And in the world of numismatics, imperfections like these are often exactly what collectors are looking for. But it's not just the die error that makes the 1981 D Washington quarter worth money. Condition plays a huge role in determining a coin's value. Like most coins, the better the condition, the higher the value. Coins that have been kept in pristine, uncirculated condition are highly sought after, especially those with the rare die errors. Finding a 1981 D Washington quarter in near-perfect condition, free from scratches or heavy wear, is a rare occurrence, which only drives up the price. Now, let's talk about the real value of this coin. While the 1981 D quarter itself is not rare in the traditional sense, the error coins and those in excellent condition can be incredibly valuable. And when one of these error coins appears at auction, collectors jump at the chance to own a piece of U.S. history. If you happen to find a pristine 1981 D Washington quarter with a die crack or other noticeable error, it could fetch an astounding $120,000. Yes, you heard that right, $120,000. That's the price tag for a coin that would have originally been worth just 25 cents when it was first minted. This is why coin collecting is such an exciting hobby. It's about finding that hidden gem in the most unlikely places. Whether it's tucked away in an old jar, stashed in a drawer, or hiding in a collection, rare coins like the 1981 D Washington quarter can turn up anywhere, and when they do, they can bring you a small fortune. So, if you have a collection of quarters, or if you've got a pile of change lying around, now might be a good time to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Pay close attention to any 1981 D quarters you come across. Look for those subtle cracks in the design or check the coin's condition. If you find something in great shape with those rare die imperfections, you could be sitting on a major find. Now, we're going to talk about a coin you've probably seen in your pocket change before, the 1988 D. Washington quarter. You might think it's just another ordinary quarter, but trust me, there's much more to this coin than meets the eye. If you're lucky enough to have one in your collection, or perhaps one hiding in your loose change, you could be sitting on a real gem worth a small fortune. The Washington quarter has been an iconic piece of U.S. currency since its introduction in 1932, featuring the face of George Washington on the obverse and a majestic eagle on the reverse. Over the years, the quarter has undergone several changes in design and composition. But today, we're specifically looking at the 1988 D. Washington quarter, minted at the Denver Mint and marked with the D mint mark. Now, at first glance, the 1988 D quarter seems like a typical modern coin. It's made from a copper-nickel-clad composition, just like most quarters produced in this time. But here's the catch. While the coin may look ordinary, there are some rare and fascinating details about it that make it incredibly valuable in certain conditions. Let's take a closer look at what sets the 1988 D. Washington quarter apart from other coins. First, we have to understand the minting process for that year. The U.S. Mint produced millions of quarters in 1988, and most of them circulated widely. While the vast majority of these coins are still floating around in circulation and aren't worth much beyond their face value of 25 cents, there are a few key things that can make the 1988 D quarter extraordinarily rare. One of the most exciting aspects of this coin is its potential for error varieties. While many coins from this era were produced with the typical minting process, some 1988 D quarters came with striking anomalies. These are often caused by problems with the dies used to strike the coin. One of the most interesting and valuable varieties that collectors look for is the double die error, which happens when the coin's design is imprinted more than once, slightly off-center. This creates a ghostly or doubled effect on the lettering and images. If you have a 1988 D quarter with this type of error, you've got a highly sought-after piece that could be worth a small fortune. Another error collectors often search for is the off-center strike, where the coin is stamped improperly, and part of the design is cut off. This type of error can be a bit trickier to spot, but when you find one, it's a rare and valuable discovery. Coins with such imperfections are unique and highly desirable because they tell the story of a minting mishap, a moment of history captured in a single coin. But it's not just about errors. Condition plays a huge role in the value of a 1988 D. Washington quarter. A coin that has been preserved in mint state, with no signs of wear or damage, can command a much higher price than one that's been used and abused in circulation. Coins that are graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services are highly prized by collectors. The sharper the details, the more luster it retains, the better it will do in the marketplace. The fact is, most 1988 D quarters are relatively common, and you can still find them in change or in old coin collections. But if you happen to come across one of those rare error varieties or a coin in perfect condition, you could be holding onto something much more valuable than you realize. Now, let's talk about the big payoff. The value of a 1988 D. Washington quarter largely depends on its condition and rarity. While the average 1988 D quarter is worth just 25 cents, a well-preserved example in mint condition or one with a notable error could fetch a much higher price. The real jackpot is when a 1988 D quarter with an error or in pristine condition is sold at auction or to a private collector. This coin has been known to sell for $110,000 when it's in top form or features a rare error. Yes, you heard that right, $110,000. That's an incredible amount of money for a coin that would have originally cost just 25 cents. But this is the beauty of coin collecting. What looks like a simple piece of currency can be hiding a world of history, value, and excitement. So, the next time you're going through your pocket change or flipping through a coin collection, don't overlook that 1988 D. Washington quarter. Take a closer look, check for any signs of errors like doubling, off-center strikes, or any other unique features that could set it apart. You just might have a rare, high-value treasure sitting right in your hands. Next coin, we're diving into a coin that may seem ordinary at first, but holds incredible value for those who know where to look: the 1994 P. Washington Quarter. If you have one of these in your collection or happen to find one in your change, keep watching because this coin could be worth far more than you ever imagined. The Washington Quarter has been a staple of U.S. currency since its introduction in 1932, and over the years, many different versions have been produced. The design has stayed relatively the same, with George Washington's profile on the front and an eagle on the reverse. But despite its consistent design, there's always something unique about each coin, especially when you start digging into specific years and mint marks. Now, the 1994 P. Washington Quarter is a coin from a period of U.S. history that might seem a bit more recent, but there's something interesting about this particular quarter that has collectors on the lookout for it. The P mint mark indicates that this quarter was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, and while it might appear to be just another regular coin, there are specific features that can make this coin far more valuable than what you'd expect. One of the main reasons the 1994 P. Washington Quarter is worth so much in the world of coin collecting is its rarity and condition. As with most coins, the vast majority of the 1994 P quarters were produced and circulated widely, meaning most of them have been worn down by the years of being in and out of wallets, purses, and vending machines. But here's the thing: when coins like the 1994 P are kept in pristine, uncirculated condition, they can skyrocket in value. The value of a coin is often determined by its grade, which measures how much wear or damage a coin has sustained. Coins that have been well preserved and kept in perfect condition are in high demand among collectors, and they can fetch far more than their face value. If you come across a 1994 P. Washington Quarter that looks like it just came fresh from the mint, you may be holding onto a rare gem. But the excitement doesn't stop there. Another factor that adds to the value of the 1994 P. Washington Quarter is the potential for minting errors. These can include things like die cracks, double die errors, and even off-center strikes. Minting errors are incredibly valuable because they make a coin unique. No two error coins are the same. The 1994 P quarter is no exception, and certain error varieties of this coin are highly sought after by collectors. A slight misstrike or an unusual flaw in the design can make the coin even more rare, which drives up its value exponentially. The real kicker comes when you consider how much collectors are willing to pay for these rare finds. Because of its rarity and potential for errors, a well-preserved, error-free 1994 P. Washington Quarter can fetch an impressive amount of money. But when it comes to coins that feature error varieties or have been graded in exceptional condition, the price can reach astronomical heights. So, how much is this coin actually worth? If you happen to find a 1994 P. Washington Quarter that is in mint condition, or better yet, one that has an error or unique feature, it could be worth a whopping $97,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $97,000. That's right, for a single quarter that was originally minted as legal tender worth just 25 cents, you could potentially cash in for a life-changing sum. The beauty of coin collecting is that the smallest detail, the slightest imperfection, or the most well-preserved example can make a huge difference in value. So, what does this mean for you? If you have a collection of coins, or if you've recently come across a 1994 P. Washington Quarter, it's definitely worth taking a closer look at it. Check for any signs of minting errors, examine the coin carefully to assess its condition, and don't hesitate to get it professionally graded if you think it's in great shape. Coins like these can often be tucked away in your collection for years before their true value is realized, so it's always a good idea to take a second glance at those everyday coins you might otherwise overlook. Last unique coin, we're going to talk about the 1997 P. Washington Quarter, minted at the Philadelphia Mint. While this coin might look like just another quarter you could find in your pocket change, there's a lot more to this coin than meets the eye, and it could be worth far more than you ever imagined. The Washington quarter, as most of you already know, has been a staple of U.S. currency since 1932, and it continues to be a beloved piece of American history. Featuring the iconic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse, this quarter has seen numerous variations throughout the years. But the 1997 P. Washington quarter holds a particular significance, especially for those who have an eye for value. First off, you might be wondering, why is the 1997 P. Washington quarter so special? The answer lies in its rarity, condition, and potential for error. Although millions of these quarters were produced in 1997, very few have survived in pristine condition or with notable error varieties that make them stand out. The beauty of this coin is that, even though it was minted in a relatively high quantity, certain factors can drive its value far beyond what you'd expect for a simple 25-cent piece. To start, let's talk about the rarity. When the U.S. Mint strikes coins, the vast majority of them are released into circulation, where they're used daily for years. Over time, many coins get worn down, scratched, and damaged from constant use. But coins that have been carefully preserved and stored in good condition, ideally in uncirculated or near-perfect grades, are much harder to find. That's what makes the 1997 P. Washington quarter valuable for collectors. If you have one that has been kept in top-notch condition, it could be worth far more than face value. Now, let's get into the minting errors, a huge factor in the value of any coin. Minting errors happen when something goes wrong during the production process. Whether it's a problem with the die, an off-center strike, or a double die error, minting errors can drastically increase a coin's value. These errors are rare, making them highly desirable among collectors. A 1997 P. Washington quarter with a noticeable minting flaw could be a highly sought-after piece, and if you happen to have one, it could bring in significant returns. One of the most popular errors collectors look for is the double die variety, where the coin's design is stamped twice, usually creating a ghostly or double defect on the lettering or images. This happens when the dies are misaligned or struck multiple times, resulting in a misprint that's often subtle but distinctive. If you find a 1997 P. Washington quarter with this error, you could have a real winner on your hands. Additionally, there are other minting mistakes, such as off-center strikes or die cracks, which can make a coin even more valuable. Each of these errors tells a unique story of how that particular coin was made, which is exactly why collectors love them. A coin that was minted incorrectly is like a one-of-a-kind piece of history, and people are willing to pay top dollar for it. Now, let's talk about the coin's grade. When it comes to coin collecting, the condition of the coin is everything. Coins that are graded as mint state MS65 or higher are far more valuable than those with visible signs of wear and tear. A Washington quarter from 1997 that's free from scratches, dings, and discoloration, and that retains its original luster, could be worth significantly more. Professional grading services like the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, or Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, assign a grade to coins based on their appearance and condition. If your 1997 P quarter has been graded highly by one of these services, it could be a real treasure. So, how much can you actually get for a 1997 P Washington quarter? Well, the value can vary depending on its condition and any minting errors it might have. However, a well-preserved example of the 1997 P quarter, or one with an error or unique characteristic, can sell for a lot more than its face value. In fact, a 1997 P. Washington quarter in excellent condition or with a minting error can be worth up to $80,000. That's right, $80,000. For a coin that was originally worth just 25 cents, this is a huge return on investment. Coin collectors are constantly on the lookout for these rare, high-quality, and error-filled coins because they can be worth a small fortune. Imagine the excitement of finding a coin that you thought was just another piece of pocket change, only to discover that it could be worth $80,000. So, the next time you're sorting through your spare change or checking your coin collection. Don't overlook those 1997 P. Washington quarters. Take a moment to really examine them. Check for any errors, look at the condition, and don't hesitate to get it professionally graded if you think it's a rare find. Who knows? You might just be holding onto a quarter that could change your financial future. If you've ever found a rare coin like this, or have one in your collection, let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your coin collecting stories. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future coin discoveries. Thanks for watching, and remember, coin collecting is full of surprises. You never know when your next find could be worth $80,000. Keep collecting and happy hunting!